I know we've only known each other for 4 weeks and 3 days, but to me, it seems like 9 weeks and 5 days.
All right, all right, all right, all my garden enthusiasts and passionate plant people. It's the third Sunday of the month. We are here on the Sunday edition. It's time for our book club here on the Let's Get Growing show here on the Urban Gardener channel. I am Enoch. I'm your host today. In just a few minutes, we do have a co-host today. Our good friend MBC, Mark Boucher-Colbert, will be with us here in just a little bit as we get this book club day rolling along today. I'm really excited. We've got a great book for you all here. We've got Craig LeHoullier joining with us here in just a little bit to talk all about this wonderful book called Epic Tomatoes. It's going to be really fun, really great. Great to have our good friend Mark Boucher-Colbert with us live as well too, and great to have all of you along with us here today as well for the show. Thank you all so much for being here. Like I said, book club day. Like I said, we've got Craig LeHoullier on with us just a little bit later on in the show. I got to make sure I'm using my banners. All right, everybody. Excellent. Again, like I said, thank you so much for being here. And if we can, right at the top of the show, click that like button, hit the subscribe button, as well as the bell notification, all of that sort of stuff. Share with all of your friends. Let them know about all of the great conversations and awesome, amazing authors and contributors that we have here on the Let's Get Growing show each and every Saturday and Sunday at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 2 p.m. Eastern. And as we were mentioning yesterday, too, I think I got to add to the banner 7 p.m. BST time as well, too, as we got a lot of folks from the UK, and there went my feed. I don't know if everybody can hear me still. Hopefully everything's okay and going. Yikes. Oh my gosh. Okay. Are we still here? Can you still hear me? All right. Excellent, everybody. Again, too, big, huge shout out to as well to all of our friends watching us on the replay today. Thank you so much for joining with us on your time. Definitely drop into the comment section below. Let us know if you've got any um, comments, thoughts, ideas, any suggestions for guests, any books we might include in our upcoming book club selections, anything like that. I'd love to hear from you. Even if you want to just drop by and say hello, definitely drop down into the comments below. And if you have any questions or comments or anything like that, drop them into our chat here if you're here with us live right now. And definitely, if you have any questions for all those live viewers as well, too, drop those into the chat with some big, bold capital letters so I can see the questions from the comments. And definitely drop in some questions for Craig, our featured author today, when he's on a little bit later. And as we're talking about this wonderful book, too. So definitely do that and follow all of our links down below in the description. Again, thanks everybody for being here. Sorry, we're just running a little late today, but like I said, we've got a great show for you all today. This is really wonderful. Just been really enjoying our book club. It's just been so wonderful. It's been so awesome to have my good friend MBC here with us live as a co-host and to talk about all of these just wonderful, awesome books. So again, a great show ahead for all of you as well today. And real quick, though, I did want to mention something at the top of the show. I was just noticing yesterday as I was doing some things. I was flipping around in basically on YouTube here. We have a YouTube studio for all of us creators we can go into. And that just gives us all the information and numbers about all of that sort of stuff. And one number kind of popped out at me, and I thought that was really great because it must have happened sometime recently, like probably say within the last week or so. Maybe the last week or so this happened. my channel, our channel, the Urban Gardener has finally, I say finally, but anyways, I mean, over 1 million views now. All of our views, everything like that, all of our videos have gotten over 1 million views on the Urban Gardener channel. I mean, that's just really amazing to be able to say 1 million, right? That's just a big number when it comes down to it. And to be able to say that 1 million people have clicked onto my videos and our content here on the Urban Gardener channel and have watched our content here. That's just amazing to me. You know what I mean? I know there's big channels and all that sort of stuff and millions and billions of views and all that sort of stuff. But for just a little creator like myself from Southern Oregon sharing about gardening and all of that, 1 million views is just astronomical and amazing and just really, really great to see. So that was really, really cool to see. So again, 1 million views. Thank you all, because again, really, when it comes down to it, you're the ones who are watching all of this. You guys are the ones who are paying attention to what we've got to say here over on the Urban Gardener, and all of that. All of the thanks goes to all of you. So thank you all for watching everything that I put out and watching all of these live streams and shows and everything as well too, and helping me get over 1 million views. Just really great. Thank you all so much. Awesome, awesome. And again, I hope everything's growing in your gardens really well. Hope everything's good. Like I said yesterday too on the show, lots of things are going on at this time. There's always a lot of things going on, I suppose, as gardeners, because we like to grow a lot of different stuff. If you're like me, man, I like to grow a lot of different things. So that means there's a lot of different timing on stuff. There's a lot of different things that we got to do. And we just passed here for Southern Oregon, for us in my region, we just passed our last frost date, and our soil temperatures are looking good now. So it is, it's like full on, let's plant. I think, really, I'm going to wait maybe another week or two. We're going to start to get a little bit warmer here, and then I'm going to start direct sowing some seeds for some other things as well too. But like I said, it's just really kind of crazy. A lot of things going on in the garden. So I hope you're having fun with all of that craziness in your garden as well right now too. Definitely drop into the comments there. Let us know about what you've got growing on in your garden. And again, today we're kind of talking tomatoes. Today's all about tomatoes. Let me know if you got any tomatoes growing on in your garden, and how those are going along as well too. I know some of you in the South probably already have some fruits growing on your tomato plants, and then some of you in the North are still probably waiting for some last frost dates to hit and some soil temperatures to get just right for you to get those out and into the ground. So I know there's a variation on the different timing where we're all at with our tomato growing, but yeah, drop into the comments. Let us know. I was sharing with you all yesterday that I made a big mistake, big time, for my tomatoes this year. Big mistake, big gardener mistake. This also ties in with the whole idea of just getting busy and being busy. I'm overall a busy person, doing a lot of stuff, putting on the show, making videos, doing all these sort of things. So I'm running around doing all sorts of stuff. And just one warm day where the sun's out and it's just really nice, and you don't pay attention to little seedlings, and next thing you know, you can cause a lot of problems if you ignore them and come back a day or so later and realize, wait a minute, I completely forgot about all of those back there. I hope that they're all right. And you come back and they're just all just shriveled down, and they're completely dry, and again, big time mistake. And the big thing I wanted to, say though too, and we kind of talked about that with our guest yesterday as well, that even those experienced gardeners, I've been gardening for years, even us experienced gardeners will make some mistakes with some things, and we got to get restarted. So we're restarted. Hopefully my tomatoes are just a little bit behind where I want them to be before I start putting them in the ground in the type of spaces we have along our alleyways and things like that. Just there's a lot of slugs out there right now. So I'm just really, I just don't want to, I just want to kind of wait until they're just a little bit bigger here. So that's going to give me about another week or so before I'm going to get them actually put into the ground as far as mine. But I'm a little behind. Hopefully they'll do all right. But yeah, again, hopefully all of your tomatoes are going well as well too. So real quick here, I'm going to run through as we're going to before we get jumping in here with our good friend Mark. He's joined with us live for In the Garden here in just a minute. I saw that we had Janet in early before the show even got started. She says, I can't wait. In the meantime, she's seed starting herbs, including some never seen or tasted before. And that's always fun to do. Always try something new. You know what I mean? Grow the things that you eat, grow those sort of things for sure. But always try something new. Have some fun with those. A new variety of something you like, maybe, or even a whole new variety of something you have never tried. That's always great. So half the plants for local gardening friends, some more local pollinator insects will share our adventures. Excellent, excellent. That's great to hear that you're planting for other friends as well too. Right on, Janet. Thanks for jumping in early today. So great to see you. Thanks for being here. Thank you, Jay, for joining with us. Our good friend Jay Dixon joining us from Midwestern Ontario, Canada, our facilitator in the chat. Keep an eye out for links and all sorts of different things. If you have a channel, she'll give you a shout out, all of that as well too. So keep an eye out for all of that going on in the conversation. And thank you for being here, Jay. We always appreciate what you do for the show. And our other moderator, Adam Burley, my good friend from just right up the road in Central Point, Oregon. Thank you very much for being here. Thanks for helping us out here on the show, Adam. It's always great to see you. I see we've got Bohemian Herbology joining us from Central Illinois. Great to have you here on the show. Thanks for being here. I see Nicole Smith is in there as well too. Awesome. Great to see you. What do we got here? I see Big Will Dogs in the conversation as well. Awesome, Will. Great to see you. Thank you for being here. Right on. Excellent. I see Serena in the conversation here. Excellent. Right on. Jay says crispy tomatoes. Yeah, they were crispy. Yeah, real crispy for sure. That's all right, though. I mean, we got most of our varieties. I did have one problem with one variety that I really like. I've been growing for a while, too. Let's see here. I see English Ladies Kitchen Garden joining in. Thank you so much for being here. Dusty Flats in the conversation. He said, they said 55 for last night. We had 49. So very nervous when I hear 39. Yeah, exactly. This time of year, you got to keep an eye on some of those temperatures, especially for some of us who are still a little bit more north and can still possibly have some pretty cold nights that can just show up sometimes too. So it's still a possibility. Right on, everybody. Let's get moving on today. We got a great show for you. Like I said, each and every Sunday, we are fortunate, or actually, that's the thing I got to talk about actually real quick here. Let's get going here real quick. In the Garden. This is what we're talking about right now. Each and every Sunday, we have our segment In the Garden. And each Sunday, we have had our good friend Mark Boucher Colbert, Mr. NBC, who will be here live with us in just one moment. He usually does all of the segments and all that stuff for us, and we're going to be kind of adding in a couple of others to kind of expand some of the what we're doing in the garden. So I'll just let you all know right now, we've got, as we've talked about in the last week or two, that we've got our good friend Paul from Guten Garden. He's going to be joining in with a segment each and every, I do believe his will be the fourth Sunday of the month. And then we have our good friend David from Bowtie Life in the Garden. He'll be joining with us on the first Sundays of the month in our In the Garden segment. And of course, we'll still have our good friend Mark Boucher Colbert here with us doing the In the Garden segment on the second Sunday of the month, and live, of course, we got to have our good friend co-hosting with me here for this just wonderful book club we have here on the third Sunday of the month. So without further ado, let's get moving on to In the Garden with our good friend MBC. There he
Hi, everybody.
is. MBC, Mark
Here we
Boucher
are. Here we are.
Colbert. How's it going, my friend? How are you
Oh man,
doing?
I'm so excited today. Tomatoes. I'm tomato thrilled about today.
Yes, yes, indeed. Tomatoes, tomatoes, tomatoes. That's what today's pretty much all about for sure. They got this great book again that we've been reading, Epic Tomatoes by Craig LeHoullier. He'll be joining with us here in just a
Yeah.
little bit on the show here when we get our book club all kicked off here for sure. This has just been an amazing book to review this month. And again, I can't wait to dig into it here in just a little bit here for our book club.
And so timely too. I mean, one of the things I've
Mhm.
been doing at my school garden is I grow and sell tomato starts to help fund our school garden program. So this year I grew about 1,000 starts, and I've probably
Ooh.
sold about 500 or 600 so far. And I'll
Oh,
want up donating some of them, but I feel like I'm just kind of swimming in tomatoes. So I'm just getting a small taste of what it must be like to be Craig LeHoullier, because his reality is this all season long. So
yeah, no doubt. Exactly. It's just to be completely focused in on that. That's just, and to do that again, like you said, for such a wonderful crop, tomatoes and all of that too. But as I was describing to everybody, my mishaps I've been having this
you don't
year.
mean it.
I'm telling you, it is a goal of mine because of where we live, though, and how things have been changing with my climate down here in Southern
Mm,
Oregon, and how difficult it's been to grow certain varieties of tomatoes with the heat that's just been really kicking in a lot. I've got to implement some other strategies, some shade cloth and things like that to do the best I can when it comes to certain things. But yeah, I try to get a head start. I try to get ahead of this sort of
mm,
thing. And so I had
mm.
all of these all going. They were just great. I was right on time. And then you just get busy doing a couple of things. And then next thing you know, boom, I'm
Yeah,
starting all over again.
I sympathize with you. I had my own loss this year. I got all my peppers, which I don't grow a huge
Mm,
amount, but I grow
hmm.
enough, and a number of different kinds. They all got attacked by aphids in the grow room. I think I
Oh
got
yeah.
over enthusiastic about. I was making a potting soil mix with some of my own compost.
Yeah.
It seems like it brought in a lot of aphids. I don't know how that happened,
Mm,
but just decimated my pepper. So I'm like, oh God, these
mm.
failures. Because when you're years into this profession or decades, you just
Yes.
think I should be on top of everything. But there's always something you're not on top of. It's like a
Yeah,
tomato
yeah. And it just
great,
makes you go, duh, but then at the
right?
same time, it's like, you know what? It is kind of a good lesson ultimately to share though as well, is that even as experienced gardeners we'll mess up some things at times too, and that's just change my timing, and I guess I'll get to see how well we'll do, and again we'll see how the summer goes ultimately as well too, for some of them. But the one variety I get from oh, I do believe it's a hybrid from Ed Hume Seeds. I get
Okay.
some of them, right? It's called Early Red Chief, I believe. And that one's been doing great in the summer heat. Like, I
Mm,
mean, I'm
mm.
getting great results from it the last couple of seasons. So I got new seed this year, and the first round, nothing came up. I was like, bummer. So that
Oh no.
was I was thinking, okay, well, at least it gives me a second chance to try that again. So I went and got another pack. Let's try it again. This is, one of our best ones through the summer. So we tried it again, and something must be wrong with their seed this year, because again, it didn't come up again. So I'm like,
Yeah.
okay. So I called them and let them know about that for sure, or at least, to check in to see if they've heard about it at least,
Yeah.
whether
Yeah.
or not it's my fault too, right? Because it still could be my fault, I suppose. But yeah. Oh, so that's another bummer. I don't got that one as well, but
Well,
that's
you
something
bring
that
up an interesting point, because especially for a new gardener, when you have a failure like that, a seedling failure, oftentimes you tend to blame yourself. But there is a lot of this happens a lot. Like some seed stock is not
hmm
vigorous. I've had
hmm
some problems with some seed from a company that I'm not going to name right now, but it is really one of my favorites. But some of
Yeah.
their stuff is not coming up well,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
starting to wonder, like, what's the quality of their seed stock? I'm not liking this because the seed is new. I mean, it's certified 2025 seed. So,
Yeah.
and I'm growing it maybe alongside some other stuff that's coming up well, the same
Hmm.
family members. So it's like, it's not my methods in this case.
Yeah.
The
Is that
seed
something,
stock,
and that's something you're seeing in different varieties of things that you're getting from different seeds though too, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and that's why
So
I'll have no problem saying Ed Hume seeds too, because really I grow a lot of their stuff. There's a local, it's kind of a local or seed company for us here in the Northwest. So I'll get some of that stuff. It's available to me and I grow a lot of it, and most everything grows wonderfully.
yeah.
I get really good results from most everything that I get from them. Don't have hardly any problems. So again, just got probably an isolated case of something gone, could have gone on with that seed, right?
Well, and this is something interesting that this might be another topic. And if we could ever get Steve Solomon on, that would be awesome. He lives in New Zealand now, but he's the guy who took over and really built up Territorial Seeds in Cottage Grove, Oregon, which is really, I
Yeah.
love that seed company. It's a very
Oh
respected
yeah,
seed
I've
company.
got to go visit them a few times.
Yeah, but in his book, when I moved out here from New Hampshire, and when I first got out here, I was really just getting into gardening after one apprenticeship season in New Hampshire, and I got his book, Growing Vegetables West of the Cascades, and that was kind of my Bible for learning how to grow stuff out here because the climate and the weather patterns are so different. And he does go in depth into the seed trade because he was describing what his experience was of building up the seed company. And so much seed, even from local companies, does not come from that company, does not originate from that company. It's bought and
Hmm.
traded in the international seed market. So I mean, Territorial tries to even that out by doing extensive field testing to make sure whatever they're offering is good. But it just raises the question of, the bigger the seed company, probably the less surveillance they'll have on the quality of the seed. They're not growing it themselves. They're not saving it themselves. Whereas, to
Hmm.
mention another local Oregon seed company, Adaptive, that I really like,
Oh yes, yeah.
I'm 100% confident they're growing almost everything, or if not, it's probably coming from their neighbor's farm down the street. They're at least going to name the grower. If they're bringing in anybody else's seed, they're going to name the grower. They're going to tell you who it is. It's probably a personal relationship they have with that grower. So there's a high degree of confidence that it's been very carefully watched over and stewarded. So that's just a thing to say about seeds. It just because it
Yeah.
comes in a beautiful, pretty package and from a company that you like, it doesn't mean that it came from anywhere near where that company's located, or had the kind of the careful and the care you think that company might be offering in terms of their overall image. It could be from somewhere
Hmm.
else, somewhere around the globe.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's very true. And again too, yeah, seed comes from a lot of different places, grown by a lot of different people, and sometimes some seed stock in even, maybe even grown good, but somehow in its transportation or also lots of different variables can go into, possible, storage, all sorts of things, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And how these things
yeah,
could
yeah, yeah.
possibly go wrong in the process of getting to you before you start to get to them in a sense as well too. So yeah, I mean that's the thing. Maybe some, I think it's a good point though, Mark, is that sometimes maybe, we like to try to blame ourselves, and I do a lot of that. I try to at least look at where could I have gone wrong in this process. You know what I mean? But sometimes it was kind of, the seed wasn't right or something like that was just, already kind of, going to set you in the wrong direction in anyways. So, sometimes it isn't our fault when it comes down to it, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm sure we'll talk about this too, but uh, right now in the garden, one of the things that I'm doing is trying to make a plan to save some seed. Like right
Hmm.
now, I'm letting some kale go, some red Russian kale for next year.
Hmm.
Uh,
I have some kale as well doing that. Yep.
just trying to incorporate. I do that a lot with cilantro. There's many things that will just go to seed really quickly, and it's very easy to save the seed. But it's sometimes nice to have a plan and an area set aside for seed saving. Certainly with tomatoes, it's easy because you don't have to give up the crop. You can eat the crop and save the seed at the same time.
Yeah.
But it's good. It's a good idea to have that primarily because we can, guarantee that we're going to have the variety again. We know the conditions under which it was grown. We can guarantee that it's organic or whatever. And then another thing that happens with seed companies is that there'll be a crop failure and you'll come to order your favorite seed that year. And it may even be listed in the catalog, but they'll stamp across it, sorry, crop failure. It's like, wait, I was counting on growing such and such. So
Yeah.
the more we take some of these things into our own hands, the better in so many ways. And then we have things to share with each other as gardeners and wonderful. We're going to talk
tomatoes as far as they're one of my favorite things as far as seed saving to share with other people.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think Craig's book is so awesome. We'll talk about this, but I love those little letters he has in the back from his Seed Saver Exchange companions. And it just brings to light this beautiful culture of gardeners stewarding the heritage of these seeds and then sharing them freely with one another. This is the thing that we do. This is something that we do, right? This is how we're safeguarding the future in our own little ways. It's just beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, here we go. We got on talking all about seeds and all of this sort of stuff. We rarely got to touch about what was going on in your garden. As we know, you got some great gardens that you get to grow in, the school garden and all of that, the rooftop garden over at Noble Rot there in Portland, your own home front yard and side yard and backyard garden and all of that as well too. So just real quick, how are things growing on in the gardens right now, Mike?
Well, I'll just tell you about our school garden. I'm really excited. We're doing which is something Kim Stoddard brought up in her book, the kind of polycultural garden where you grow things together, different crops together.
Right.
A very classic one that I think most gardeners have heard of is what's called, the Three Sisters Garden, a Native American take on gardening that combines corn, beans, and squash with various advantages for all three. Timing's a little important with that system. So the corn has to go in first because it provides kind of the architecture for the beans, at least. So we planted 3 really exciting varieties of flower corn. We did, and these were all from Baker Creek, which I, really love many of their selections. Atomic Orange, Hopi Purple, and Glass Gem, which are all corn that we're going to grind into meal. And just getting real excited. I just saw the Atomic Orange popping up the other day because we had many weeks of warmer, drier weather, so things have kind of been able to take off a little bit. So just getting excited about that. That just this what's going to look like. These towers of squash and beans, and then the sea of squash if all goes right.
Yeah.
Polycultural garden, and then at the end of the season we'll just bust in and harvest it all. It's important with that system that you grow some kind of flour corn or popcorn, not sweet corn, because I've tried that. And you also need to grow pole beans. The pole beans they literally wrap around the ears of corn. So one year I tried that with sweet corn, and to get the sweet corn ears off, you sometimes wind up damaging the beans. So don't do that. Yeah, so you can grow the pole beans can be for green or shelling or for for baking. That's fine. You can take them at any stage. But if you're trying to rip off the ears of corn, the beans are going to be tightly wound around it. So don't do that. Do a corn you can harvest when it's dry, like popcorn or flour corn.
All right. Yeah. Excellent advice.
Yeah, so that's exciting part of the season.
It really is. And again, it's about time for the exciting part of this show here in just a minute too. That's for sure, Mark. So right on here, we're going to get moving on here today. We got just a real quick break to take here, and then we're going to come right back here for our in the garden or not in our book club. It's book club time, Mark.
It's book club.
All right. Let's get moving. Hey, gardeners, thanks for tuning in to our Hey gardeners, thanks for tuning in to our show today. We'll be right back at it here in just a moment. I just wanted to take a second here to highlight our regular videos and features here on the Urban Gardener channel. Our weekly garden journals, and our incredible featured visits. All right, Mark. Here we are. We're back again.
It's time to get epic.
It's time to get epic, that's for sure, because it is time. Oh, I got to get these things right here. All right, Mark, it's time for the monthly gardening book club. All right. Here we are. This month's book, as we've been mentioning, is Epic Tomatoes by Craig LeHoullier, joining with us today here in just one moment. But Mark, wow, literally, this has been, I mean, we've had some really great books in our book club, but it seems like we almost just keep topping ourselves each time, right? This is just amazing, huh?
This book is as juicy as an heirloom tomato. I mean, this is like,
yeah, it really is. It's
this
just
is like
amazing.
this book is to the gardener's mind what a brandywine tomato is to the gardener's palate. I gotta say, it's
right.
No, this is
I mean, this is like one of the opening pages right here. Look at this.
Okay, yeah, right.
Oh, let's get it out of the light there. There we go. Look at that. I mean, just
That's
amazing.
Then, like,
look at all those things. Just
there's these sexy. I mean, one thing about this book, and I told you before we got on here, is most of the books that we read for Garden Book Group and just in general, I love to mark up my books, right? I'm always writing them in the margins with a pencil or a pen, just making little notes, underlining like crazy. That's just how I read a book. This book I did not touch. It is pristine. I could not bear to mark it because it is so beautiful. So
I felt
really
the same way. I'm really, like I said, I'm really a post-it crazy. So
yeah.
I instead of like markers or anything like that, I've got post-its all over the place, so I mean, I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna use these post-its instead of marking in the book.
I think what happened here is that a tomato growing genius combined with an artistic director genius, and this thing was born because
right.
The information is crazy and amazing, and Craig's long history just brings him an unrivaled perspective. But then the visuals are so darn sexy. It's like, oh my God, who thought this up?
Exactly. So great. Really excited about getting into this. We've got again too such a wonderful part, and hopefully that some folks will really figure this book club out, because I'm telling you, this is just amazing, because of course we get to look at and read these amazing cool books, but we get to also have these amazing cool authors with us here. So let's, without further ado, waiting in the wings, we've got Mr. Craig LeHoullier joining with us here on the show for our monthly gardening book club. Thank you, Craig, so much for being here today. So wonderful of you.
You guys have me blushing so much in here. I bumped the temperature up about 5 degrees. So, but I've
that's awesome.
love
Well
listening to
deserved.
your
Well deserved.
love listening to your chatter as I was waiting the last 10 minutes or so, because that's something the three of us could have sat at a table over a glass of wine and talked about all of these incredible topics, seed quality and
Oh,
timings,
absolutely.
and such fun, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
It really is. It really is. We want to talk a lot about you. We want to talk a lot about this book, and we want to talk a lot about that. But I would love sometime again too. One of the things here, we love that sort of conversation. So we'll definitely have to at some point in time get you back around so we can just dig into all that other wonderful just garden talk as well too sometime too. Because
Hey, Enoch,
again, I know from reading this book, I'm sure you've got a lot to contribute about things.
Enoch, just as an aside, now that you've hit it big and you hit 1 million views, I forgot to say congratulations about that. That's
Oh,
awesome.
thanks. Yeah, thank you.
No, the sponsorship money is going to start to pour in now, so you will be able
Yeah,
to
right.
get some like Italian villa, and we can bring all the authors together for like an author symposium. So we could be eating tomatoes in Italy somewhere, talking about
That's
all this
right.
stuff.
Thank you
Okay.
very much, Mark, for really pumping that up like that. That's great. We're on our way. We are on our way to that Italian villa for sure.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's hold that
And
as an idea.
just think of the amazing tomatoes we could grow.
Wow. Yeah. So Craig, just to jump in, tell us about this book, the beauty of it. How did it come together? It's just such an astonishing book. Tell us about that.
Sure. Well, first of all, thanks for having me on, guys. This is just such a treat.
You bet.
So the book, I really dove into heirloom tomatoes when I joined the Seed Savers Exchange in 1986. And this is a really big year because this is the 50-year anniversary of the SSE.
Oh, right. Wow.
And if they were formed, we'd all be growing nothing but big boys in our garden.
Right.
So it's such a critical point. But after I joined them, I started amassing a pretty large collection of heirlooms. And then my wife started saying, "You need to write a book." I'm like, well, I was working at the time. We had our 2 daughters. I said, the book will come out when the time is right. Nick Orr in Canada had written a book, and Story said to her, "We need a tomato book. Who do you think?" And Nikki said, "Have you talked to Craig?" I was on her radio show quite a few times.
Okay.
And so
Nikki's the gardener up in Nova Scotia, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Nikki got her editor to contact me, and that was right around 2012, signed the contract. But so much of this was just building in my head that I just sat down in front of a laptop and took about a year for it to pour out, usually sitting in coffee shops, listening to nice music and people watching at the same time. I'm a 120 word touch typer, but I'm also a multitasker. So I need to be doing so the chapters like history and flavors just poured out fast. Things like diseases and troubleshooting, you always leave the ones to last that are maybe the less fun, so to speak.
Yeah. Right.
But then, so I submitted to Story a 90,000 Word document, and they put we had photographers coming to our house, 2 different ones, one each year, all the time. And they would say things like, "So if we show up next Wednesday, all 65 or so tomatoes will be ripe, right?" And I said, "You guys write garden books, right? Don't you know how this works?" That shot, Enoch, that you showed of the tomatoes all on the floor, that was some of my tomato plant customers, some of mine, some mailed, all driven up to a hot, sweaty warehouse in Virginia. That shot took about 3 hours because we had to lay it all out. I had to write all the little names on tags, and we had to put them in the right place. That's probably my favorite page of the book, aside from what Mark mentioned. The idea that I got while walking my dog is I've got all these great letters. We need to incorporate some of these into the book. So you guys ended up picking out, actually, serendipitously, 2 of my favorite parts of the book. And the book's been out 10 years now. Speaking of more round number anniversaries.
Yeah.
Doesn't seem possible. I mean, the last 10 years have flown by like, COVID hit 6 years ago, and it took me off the road, which I was very thankful for, because then I could start doing Zooms with people who couldn't afford to fly me out there or put me up in
Mhm.
hotels and such. And I've now
Mhm.
been able to reach a lot more people talking gardening. Instagram's been a favorite tool of mine, but I'm going to be 70 next year, and I've been doing gardening for 40 years, and it's just as fun now as the very
Yeah.
first seed that I planted. It's just
Wow.
like that as a hobby.
That's
Yeah.
that's a great quote in itself. I like that. That should be emblazoned on every first
Yeah.
gardener seed package or something. It's like this is going to be just as fun 40 years from now as it will right now.
Yeah, watch out. I'm like a meme generator. I never turn them into anything. So you guys get busy and make some money off my bizarre ideas and little impulsive things.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
That's
Wow.
really wonderful. I mean, I love it. I love the passion, and again, too, also as another, a great lesson for folks and gardeners out there who are newer to all of this and everything. And that's one of the things I love about talking about great gardeners with, generational experience in a sense, you know what I mean? That, to know that the passion still grows and still
Mm,
exists, even as you get older, you know what I mean? Is something
yeah.
that,
And I,
again,
and I think
you've
that,
got to understand that gardening continues to give.
yes.
This
And
continues.
the other important thing I think to stress is I'm not a writer. I was never trained to be a writer, but I love to
Mhm.
teach and I have a passion for growing things.
Yeah.
So anybody can find their lane. Maybe it's beans, maybe it's beets.
Mm.
I met someone whose passion was cardoon for
Yeah.
Oh,
some strange. But there could be a book or a blog or a way to reach people with this because you're automatically going to know more than many, many people about these particular topics. Look for an opportunity. When I first signed that
mhm.
contract, I said to Story, I'm a chemist, I'm a scientist, I'm not a writer. But I decided to write the book as if I was taking people on a walk through my garden and
Mhm.
explaining to them what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. And it just seems to have worked. I'm very thankful that the approach just kind of was a good fit for me. It's not a scientific journal book.
Yeah.
It's more of a come on over, guys, let's talk tomatoes book, which I wanted it to be.
But I will say this: I noticed the touches of a scientist in the precision, in the
Mm.
charts. So
Yes.
the scientist didn't totally step out of the way. He
Yeah.
still got it, right.
Gardening is kind of the perfect marriage of left and right brain because if you
Yeah.
want to improve
Yeah.
in your gardening technique every year, you will make a plan. You will capture some data. You don't want to Einstein your garden and do the definition of insanity and keep repeating the same mistakes year after year. So you do need to learn along the way, and some of that is pen and paper. It's living in your garden with your plants and observing them and understanding what they're doing and why. And that to me also makes gardening is a funny little story. I sold seedlings to a couple in Raleigh when I lived in Raleigh, and they came back the next year and they said your plants didn't do too well. And I said, I'm really sorry, I'll replace them. What happened? Well, we planted them and then we took a cruise for 2 months, and when we came back we couldn't find the plants.
Um,
That is like the definition of how not to be a good gardener.
yeah.
Right.
You're like, get out of here, you bums. No refunds given for that.
That
Well,
is great.
the thing is, I did give them plants because I wanted to nurture them.
Mhm.
It's like when I first started selling the plants and everybody wanted red tomatoes, and I would always give them a white, a yellow, a bicolor, a stripe, a purple. And within 3 or 4 years, they're coming back for the Whitman sampler. I want one of every color you've got.
Mm.
So we have to teach our countrymen how to eat because the grocery store teaches many people how to eat, and that makes for very boring gardens. We need
Yeah.
to diversify all of the different things we can grow, and there's never been a better time to be a gardener than now. You mentioned the Baker Creek catalog, the Seed Savers Exchange catalog. How do you even decide to choose what you're going to grow these days? There's so many things to pick from. It's amazing.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's my
Yeah.
question. One of my favorite photos in the book was you standing in your driveway, chocolate block full. I was like wondering, like, how does the postman and how do visitors get in here? I couldn't see a clear path. But anyway, you obviously are shepherding a collection of, I think you mentioned probably thousands of different varieties that you
Yeah.
have and you grow out. So how do you decide what to grow every year? Let's talk about that.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
great question. Well, first of all, the other thing about that picture of the driveway was the grief that it gave to the homeowners association, because we broke so many rules.
Oh yeah.
And what you do is you kill them with kindness. You say, would you like a tomato? Would you like an
Uh,
eggplant? Would you like a squash? And after a while, they realize this is like an educational school sitting in your driveway that the kids can come in and you can teach them how to choose. And each year that I garden, the choice evolves. My gardens have shrunk a little bit. So I used to grow 100 to 150 varieties a year. This year I'm going to be maybe 25 or 30 in my backyard and 25 or 30 in my daughter and her boyfriend's backyard. So a way to figure out how to grow 60 varieties where I only have to care directly for 30. Um, has to be some of my favorites. So every year it's Cherokee Purple, Cherokee Chocolate, Cherokee Green, Lily
Hmm.
Anziolo Heirloom, Sun Gold. So there's those 5 or 10 core varieties that, as someone who loves to cook and loves to eat, you can't imagine a summer without certain varieties. Then there's the new heirlooms that people still continue to send me that have been in their family, and I'm the only one
mm,
that has it besides them. You have to make room for some of those. And then the fun of doing your own breeding. So this year
yeah.
I've got
Yeah.
4 or 5 of my own creations out there. Not any of the 168 dwarf tomato project varieties, interestingly. I'm leaving those for other people to grow. I'm creating new. I'm trying to get our number up to 200. So I'm still working on creating new varieties because, of
Mhm.
course, there's 10 or 12,000 varieties of tomatoes. We still need
Right.
more, don't we?
Right.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
kind of how I make the decision: is the most diverse, interesting, educational garden and delicious that I can come up with any given year. And it's a mixture of those categories.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. Excellent, excellent. Yeah, and just real quick though, everybody watching right now, I see we've got some questions that are pouring in,
Mm.
and I want everybody to know I am going to work these questions in as we go. So I am marking them. So don't worry about repeating and let me know. I'm going to work these questions in, everybody, for sure. Real quick
Mm,
though, on this idea of selection and everything too, that I find fascinating too, is again, there's all of these great heirlooms, hundreds, thousand varieties. You know what I mean? And one of the things is growing to keep varieties in their genetics going. Could you talk a
Mm.
little bit about that? Maybe do you still do some of
Yeah,
that, or is that something that maybe
yeah,
the work is going on through? You know, maybe you can talk about that a little bit, because I think that's really
sure.
fascinating, because we think about seeds and seed viability and all of that
Mm,
sort of stuff as well too. We kind of talked and touched just a little bit on that
mm,
as
mm,
we were talking just previously though, but maybe
mm.
that's something, again.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I love that conversation you were having, because you touched on so many important aspects, like the fact that the seed company down the road does not get all of their seed from their farm garden. It comes in from everywhere. The
Mhm.
fact that mistakes can happen. Seeds are living entities. And so if they're mistreated along the way, if they get damp and then dry out again, that will cut their viability. And also, each distinct variety of vegetable or fruit has their own optimum germination range. So for tomatoes, be, I love genealogy, and so I'm kind of the family tree doer in my family. And the whole thing of heirloom vegetables touched me, because you're saving stories. You're saving the lives of the people that kept these seeds through all the years.
mm.
One of the things I like to say is, if you want to grow gardeners, grow heirlooms, because you can bring them into your garden. And I can tell them the Cherokee Purple story, the Mortgage Lifter
Mhm.
story, the Lillian's
Yeah.
heirloom story. That may captivate them. And then they want to grow plants and tell stories. But seed saving became really important to me, because when Kent Whaley started SSE, the number of varieties was plummeting. The creation of the SSE allowed the mechanism of the sharing of seeds that allowed the number of varieties to then start skyrocketing. Little companies like Victory Seeds, who used to be in Oregon and now they're in Texas, Southern Exposure Seed, they formed around offering nothing but heirlooms.
Mm,
Um, so a lot of people will say, you're growing 150 tomatoes in your driveway. How do you keep them pure? And you could bag your blossoms. That is extra work. But if you want to be 100%, you do that. You could separate them out. But as I tell people, how long does it take a bee to get from one corner of your yard to the other? So even with separation, the bees could
Mhm.
visit your brandywine and then 1 second
Yeah.
later be at your sun gold. So I've in my climate here in Hendersonville, North Carolina, and in Raleigh, and I noticed the same thing when I gardened in Hanover, New Hampshire, and Pawtucket, Rhode Island. If you focus on the first cluster of fruit, the bees typically are busy doing other things. They're visiting basil, they're visiting your flower garden. And I've found that if I focus on that first cluster,
Mm.
I'm getting about 99% plus purity. Whereas if I wait until later in the summer, when you walk into your tomato garden, you can hear the hum of the bees all busily visiting flower, your purity chances are going to drop to 60 or 70%. Now, if you love mysteries and you're growing a brandywine and all of a sudden you get a yellow striped tomato, whoop, the bees have been, I don't know what this is anymore. It's brandywine times, whatever. And then you start looking at
Mhm.
your garden map to see what your brandywine was planted next to see if you can figure it out. But I think seed saving is still important. We're at a time
Yeah.
where gardeners love shiny new objects, the antho tomatoes, the striped tomatoes, whatever makes it to the
Mhm.
front, the shiny, glossy
Mm.
photos on seed catalogs. I always want to grow a core of heirlooms that I've kept as pure as possible since I received them, typically back in the mid 80s. Because when the gloss comes off the rows of anthos or stripes or funky looking cherries, people are going to be looking for flavor again. And I'll still
Mhm.
have all of those heirloom varieties that I've saved through the years ready to re-inject to seed companies if they've lost them. Um, you know, I love combining things to see what it creates. And a few years ago, I crossed Cherokee Purple with Lillian's Yellow, two of my top three
Mm.
flavored tomatoes, just to
Wow.
see what would happen. And the hybrid
Right.
is one of the best flavored tomatoes I've ever eaten in my life. But I've now got 3 or 4 named varieties that have come out of saved seed that are very different from either Cherokee Purple or Lillian's Yellow. So again, I'm going to babble on here, but this
No,
is
no.
where the passion can lead you once you start looking at gardening almost as a
Yes.
scientist and a creator and a discoverer. You can discover new things all the time. So I'm going to catch my breath and let you decide where you want to redirect me after that.
Well,
You know,
I'm gonna say with some of that stuff because this is something I found interesting. I think okay, we all understand the idea of the tomato as a species.
Right.
Okay, we understand tomatoes as varieties. Like we see
Mhm.
the difference between this is a sun gold, this is a
Right.
brown wine, this is a paste tomato, this is a
Yeah.
select. And then we start drilling down into like okay, there's a variety, but then you talk about strains within the variety. And so
Yeah.
talk a little bit more about that,
Yeah.
and you can go into breeding if you want or wherever you want
Sure.
to go.
No, no, no. It's good. It's kind of almost a little bit of a bugaboo with me because strains end up popping up probably being inappropriately labeled and maybe just as kind of a knee-jerk reaction that something is different based on one year. And I'll bring up the example of Carolyn Mayle, my favorite, who sadly passed away, but she wrote a great tomato book and she and I were friends for many years. She loved yellow brandywine, but then somebody sent her one that for one year it seemed better, and she called it Plattfoot strain off of Gary Plattfoot. I don't think it was a strain. I think she saw minor morphological differences based on the weather she had that year.
Mm,
But what happens, the reason there's 12,000 tomatoes in the Seed Savers Years book is renamings, selections that people think are different.
right.
So in the yearbook, you've got maybe 300 or 400 regular leaf, big pink beefsteaks. You've got at least 100 big yellow red stripe ones. And if you were to put these to genetic testing, many, many, many of these would collapse to maybe 1, 2, or 3 varieties. But as they've passed through families, new names
Mm,
have been stuck to it. So I live in North Carolina, and the only true North Carolina heirloom tomato is German Johnson. Nobody knows where it came from. What if it was Ponderosa that was grown by a Johnson family who happened to be German and they forgot that it was named Ponderosa and they started calling it Oh, that's that nice German Johnson tomato. And then 20 years, it goes to the Pappy's family, and it becomes, oh, that's Pappy's favorite. So now you've got Ponderosa equals German Johnson equals Pappy's favorite.
Mm-hmm.
This imparts some of the charm on heirloom tomatoes.
Yes.
It also imparts a lot of potential confusion that you may think you're growing 3 different tomatoes. They all look the same, and in truth, you may be growing all the same tomato. And until genetic testing becomes super inexpensive, and you can take like a whole bunch of tomatoes and test them. One more example I think that's revealing: Cherokee Purple and Black Krim are both purplish tomatoes. They have very different histories. MIT was kind of interested in how seed companies are doing, keeping different varieties straight and pure.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think they tested Black Krim and Cherokee Purple from about 50 different seed companies. And I sent them the authentic Cherokee Purple I received, and they DNA tested them. And it turned out 1/3 of the companies selling Cherokee Purple was actually Black Krim. 1/3 of the companies selling Black Krim, it was actually Cherokee Purple. 1/3, the strain was so messed up, they weren't quite sure what they were selling. And so
Wow.
the benefit of heirlooms becoming popular is everybody's doing it. Everybody's seed saving. Everybody's sharing. The potential downside is not everybody is really great at seed saving or keeping, crossing is happening, and it's starting to change some of our name varieties into different name varieties, but we don't know it yet. And so you mentioned, what if I order a tomato, you mentioned Ed Hume, and it doesn't germinate?
Right.
Well, let's flip that into, what if I ordered a tomato from company X and it was supposed to be purple and it's now yellow? What do I do? Well, you contact the seed company, you have them look at their seed genealogy, where it could have gone wrong. Where did they get it from? It makes people with my level of knowledge and expertise kind of a little frustrated, but also kind of interested, because we're always looking at these mysteries. I used to try to solve them all.
Yeah.
I don't anymore. It's just it's kind of like trying to nail garden misinformation on Instagram. I used to get really upset with some of the weird stuff people suggest, and now I'm like, have at it. If it works for you, good luck. But please don't chop all your peppers off to 2 inches tall. And then it's like, there's just crazy stuff out there, but that's all right.
Yeah.
People go on social networking for different reasons, and that's
exactly.
I go on to share information I've learned. Other people are trying to make money, and both are valid, for whatever people's needs are. But I don't like misinformation or disinformation.
Oh yeah, in any way, exactly. Or
Yeah.
any purpose really too. So yeah, that's for sure.
So
Real
finish
quick
the
here,
strain
again,
thing.
like I said, I'm
Okay,
sorry, go ahead.
One
I was
sentence
just
on the strain thing. Brandywine is another example. Is there a Sudduth strain? The actual Brandywine came from Dorothy Sudduth, and it was sent to Ben Quisenberry. Anything beyond that, the PAWER strain is the Sudduth strain, but somebody decided to name it with the Seed Savers Exchange code. PAWER is Roger Wentling from Pennsylvania. Each case has to be identified. If you are growing something and it looks quite different, instead of being called, for example, Lucky Cross strain, blah, should be called a totally new variety. That's how you would actually eliminate the confusion, is don't keep using the strain thing for things that are similar. It's actually probably a genetically different variety right now. Give it a different name. Make sure people know what the history is. Otherwise, these strain things lead to tons of confusion out there, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Interesting.
All right. Let's see here real quick here. Like I said, we got questions. We gotta get some questions in here real quick here. I know I got my own questions, but we got viewers here, and viewers got questions as well too.
Yeah.
So let's get in here. Let's see. Dusty Flats asked just a little bit ago, are all the varieties in your book heirlooms?
If they're not, such as Sun Gold, I clearly designate as such. And I think there's a table in the back where your story wanted me to recommend a certain number of tomatoes, and I think it's 100, 200, and I do put F1 because Lemon Boy hybrid is a great tomato. A lot of people love Celebrity. Better Boy and Whopper were the first two tomatoes I ever grew and loved. And so yes,
Mhm.
there are hybrids in there. Now you don't want to save seeds from hybrids and regrow them unless you want to embark on a journey
Uh,
to create your new variety. But they will grow. They will grow tomatoes. You just don't know what kind of tomatoes they're going to grow.
Could you
But
just
yes,
talk about that for 1 second, though?
yeah,
We were just talking about this before the show. I thought it was really a cool thing that you described and
yeah,
talk about dehybridization.
yeah.
Now,
So
I
now
do have real quick though, I do
yeah,
have a variety which is one of my favorite
mm,
varieties that I grow each and every year.
mm,
I save seeds from, and it was in its story was a dehybridized variety
mm,
of tomato that was done by a YouTube gardener named Ray Browning
uh-huh,
years and years ago, and he
yeah,
dehybridized a tomato and named it his own variety, Prax
yeah,
cherry tomato. It's
yes,
literally a very delicious, plump
mm,
little cherry tomato and everything that
yeah,
he went through this process that you described in
yes,
the book about dehybridization.
yeah. So let's use Sun Gold as an example
Yeah.
because one thing about hybrids is we don't know who the parents are because that's how seed companies make money on it.
Right.
They keep it a secret. So Sun Gold is pollen from variety A applied to flowers of variety B, and somebody somewhere found out that that creates seeds that grow tomatoes that are greater than the sum of the two parts. So Sun Gold, wildly productive, little gold hybrid cherry tomato, incredibly delicious. Many people have then saved seeds and seen if they can absolutely replicate Sun Gold. No one has exactly replicated it. And in fact, I've gotten
Mhm.
red, I've gotten potato leaf, I've got pink, I've gotten yellow, I've
Wow.
got flavors that are really pretty good, flavors that are not so good. So what's happening is when you grow out the F2 seed, you'll get things that look like dad, like mom, and probably like you'll see little cousins in between.
Variations of.
Yeah, and so if you do want to create your new variety, if you have a hybrid you love, and you were mentioning the Ed Hume variety, grow it and save seeds from that, and the next year you would take your saved seeds and grow maybe 15 or 20 plants.
Mhm.
This is in Often in our garden we don't want to commit that much room to do something like this, so we get our friends involved. Hey, if I give you 5 plants, can you grow them? See if you can find a tomato that is very close to the hybrid you love.
Yeah.
Save seeds from that, repeat
Mm.
the experiment the next year, and you're now narrowing the funnel. You're eliminating the
Mhm.
noise of things that have some genes that you don't want, and you're trying to nail down something very close to that hybrid. Why that can be useful is if Ed Hume or whoever else is selling it decides we're done with this variety, we're not going to sell it anymore, you're
Yeah,
out of luck because you don't know
Right.
what the
exactly.
parents are. So it's a good thing. I have 3 eggplant that I developed and named that are all from Johnny Selected Seeds Orient Express. One of them looks very much like the hybrid. One of them is pink and white, and one of them is like a medium purple. And I've given them all names, and they're at the 10th generation now, and they're all
Wow.
really good eggplants. So you know,
Okay,
have
that's a good question. How many
yeah,
generations are we until we've
yeah,
kind of gotten to the point where we say that this is
yes,
open pollinated, I guess, or
right.
right?
A lot of it depends on whether you're going after a lot of recessive traits because they are the
Mm.
easiest ones to actually get stable. So when we did our dwarf tomato breeding project, every family started with us creating a hybrid and then growing out. What we found, most of the dwarfs stabilized within sixth, seventh, eighth generations, and a few of them took out to the 10th generations. So this is where it's good to have friends in a different growing zone because you can get 2 crops in per calendar year and you can take a 10-year breeding project and make it into a 5-year breeding project. Or if you have a greenhouse and you can double crop, but it can take that long. But if you're going after a striped green tomato with variegated foliage, you'll probably be able to stabilize that if you find it, because it's going to be like finding a needle in a haystack, but you'll probably get that nailed within 3 or 4 years. So it's all fun. And now you're getting to see why I do my Instagram lives for 45 minutes every week in the growing season. You can talk about this stuff just endlessly
It really
because
is.
everything sends you down a rat hole of fun and you're
Oh
never
my
going to go
gosh,
done.
it's amazing. Like I say, I could, I'm one of those guys that I could sit here all
Yeah,
day and just sit here for 5, 6 hours and talk
me
about
too.
all this other stuff, but I don't know if everybody else can, but hey.
Hey, Enoch, you got more viewer questions you want to ask, or should I launch into something else?
Yeah, I was just wondering again, it was your turn, but I want to get a
Yeah.
couple more questions in if
Yeah,
that's real
why
cool,
don't you
real
take
quick.
one
Let's do
more
that.
viewer one, and I'll launch into a little bit of a different
Let's
line.
see
Hmm.
here. Let's get to okay. Kelpie's Capers Farm was asking about how many tomatoes wound up in the dwarf tomato project, and maybe you
Yeah,
could
well,
describe that project a little bit.
yeah. So the project was born in 2004 when during selling seedlings, and you were mentioning you had 1,000 seedlings. I would end up in my driveway with 8 or 9,000 to sell. I would
Okay,
never, I would never sell them all, of course. So
I'm not
local.
down for that. No.
That's a
Well,
lot.
if I didn't do the dwarf seedling, I mean the dense planting seedling technique, I could never have done it. But
Yeah,
when you can get 2,500 plants in a 1 by 2 foot footprint, it just becomes an exercise in transplanting. And I find beer and
Yeah.
music really helps. Um, but
Yes.
anyway, the dwarf tomato breeding project, I kept getting questions. What have you got that's delicious, or it looks just like an heirloom, but I don't have to climb a ladder to pick it?
right.
And determinate varieties are kind of boring. Roma, good for sauces. Taxi, really nice little yellow tomato, but there's not a ton of them. And there were some really interesting dwarfs like Tom Wagner's lime green salad or all the historical dwarfs from the 1800s. Nobody had the heirlooms to do the crosses with. So Petrina started crossing Cherokee Purple onto Dwarf Champion, or we started with 9 families. We're well over 100 now. But I assembled a collection of interested gardeners, telling them the pay would be terrible, zero. You're only volunteering to do this because you love to play in the garden and try things out. We've had over 1,000 people involved, 25 countries, all of
Wow.
50 states. It started in 2005. It's 20-year anniversary, and we now have 168 varieties. Victory Seeds is the company that is dedicated to selling them all. So they are our releasing company. And then when other companies see them and want to add them, they will order seed from Victory. And now Adaptive Seeds in Oregon, I've met Andrew from there. He's selling quite a few of the dwarf varieties. Renaissance Farm. One of our first releases was Sweet Sue, and that was 2010. That's now in 40 different seed catalogs. So we wanted to take a very modest bottom down approach, an if you build it, they will come approach. Let's just
Hmm.
create them, put them in a seed company, list a few in the seed savers, and see if people hear about them. And they've heard about them. And it's funny because I asked Rob Johnson of Johnny's if they were interested, and they said, well, we're really into micro lettuces and stuff now. We really don't think small container short tomatoes are the way to go. And Rob
Ooh,
missed the boat because what Mike Dunton of Victory has found, and now Dave Whitinger, people love these things because they can grow them in a driveway or a deck, or a 3 or 4 foot tall tomato plant is a heck of a lot easier to manage than an 8 or 10 foot tall one. And the ridiculous tomato cages work perfectly for them. The little
yeah,
cone-shaped wire guys that your sun gold escapes in about a week. The dwarfs stay right in there. Um, that's another way to grow gardeners, is to create plants that make patio gardening just as interesting as indeterminate tomato heirloom gardening by giving them the pinks and the purples and the whites and the stripes. So in my head, I have an idea of what gaps need to be filled, and then I do crosses to fill the gaps. We
Yeah.
need a big purple with green stripes. We need a big orange heart,
mm,
and so you can do targeted breeding. And after a while, you learn if I take hybrid, if I take tall heirloom A and cross it onto dwarf B, I have a chance of getting these 2 or 3 types of tomatoes. So we're still to this day, people volunteer. I send them seeds, they grow stuff, they send it back to me. I evaluate it, and eventually it will end up in a seed company with their name on it, if they name it, with the story of how they developed it. So it's, what do you call it? Citizen science. I call it crowd breeding. That's the word I kind of
Yeah.
invented for it, but it's citizen science.
Yeah.
That's so, that reminds me of we have a big project that's originated out of Oregon State University, the Culinary Breeding Network, which you probably heard of in Lane
I've heard
Selman.
of, yeah.
But this idea that with there, it's especially focused on getting chefs and growers together, and the
Yeah.
chefs, growers, and chefs, growers, and breeders, really all three.
Yeah.
Chefs and tell the breeders, this is what we need. The breeders go to work on it, and the growers grow it out.
Mm.
It sounds like you're doing something similar with all this feedback that's coming in. How much is that coming from chefs? Like how many?
We've, when I was into heirlooms, I interacted with chefs a lot, and they loved heirloom varieties. The challenge was getting them a consistent supply, because a lot of them came out of small gardens or small farms. And as everybody who's tried to grow tomatoes know, one of the other things you guys were talking about earlier was us continually learning how to garden successfully or farm successfully when Mother Nature keeps throwing curveballs at us. That's really true of tomatoes. When a heat spell will make your flowers dry up and affect blossom set or bring in a whole new disease. So I think chefs,
I'll just say real quick though, as they say, the tomatoes are the diva of the garden, people. You know what I mean? We all love tomatoes, but if there's anything in the garden that's going to give us a complication for any reason at all, it's definitely a tomato, right?
One of the feedback I always get about my Instagram lives and my blogs is I show all the mistakes and I show the ugly stuff. And it makes people so happy, because they're like, if you've been doing this for 40 years and 3 out of every 10 years are pretty bad, and maybe 5 out of every 10 years are pretty good, and then only 2 out of every 10 years are truly great, then we're okay. We gardeners who are having difficult times are just gardeners who are having difficult times because of factors that are not under our control, like those deluge rainstorms or hailstorms or the, attack of hornworms. So yes, gardeners should get more focused on enjoying the journey and much less focused on the destination, because then it will be joyous. Whereas if all you're thinking about is your 25 pounds for tomato plant, you're probably going to be a little bit disappointed, because you're not going to hit it every year on every plant. So just have fun and learn lots. That's always been and also listen to the birds. We haven't watched TV news in 15 years. We've removed ourselves from the madness, and we've created kind of like this bubble of sanity in a yard with other gardeners that we talk to, because you can make much more sense out of life if you garden. How's that?
Yes, I find that to be more and more true to myself.
Can you talk a little? You seem to have mastered the art of container growing for tomatoes, and I think that's probably an area a lot of viewers aren't going to be really up to speed with. So give us your top tips or what to watch out for there.
Tomatoes, containers, and even more so straw bale. So I went from in-ground to 50% in-ground, 50% containers, mostly because of losing sunlight to trees in our garden, to 100 containers. And now here in Hendersonville, I'm gardening on top of my septic field. So it's either containers or straw bales. Straw bales are giving me incredibly outstanding results. But let's focus on containers for a moment. Size is important. A 5-gallon capacity will be perfect for a determinate, a dwarf tomato, a pepper of any sort, or an eggplant. So and in fact, if people have had trouble with eggplant and peppers in ground, try them in a container, because those two crops particularly love hot root zones, and you'll get 10 times the production if you grow them in containers minimum. It's about sizing right. So now if you want to grow an indeterminate like Cherokee Purple or Sun Gold, bigger root system, taller plant, 10-gallon is probably your minimum. So there is a cost associated, and it's buying good quality potting mix. I love to use a bagged soilless mix that you can buy at a big box store. When you start talking about materials each gardener has to fit what they use into their own gardening philosophy. Are you strictly organic? Are you kind of what I am, which is always on the way towards strictly organic, but I need crops and I need to grow stuff. So I will bend a little bit here and there to make things work for me. So I'll use, Stay Green potting mix, which is and you don't want to use topsoil or garden soil or the real cheap stuff because it's very heavy and it doesn't drain well and it often will have fungal spores in it. So a soilless potting mix is a combination of shredded bark, perlite, vermiculite, um, peat moss, and it drains well. And I'll use a 3-to-1 ratio of that with compost. It can be your own compost. It could be something like composted manures. And it works great. I like to use black plastic grow bags that are very inexpensive, but I've had some of them for 15 years. So you're not, they have holes pre-punched in the bottom. And I actually get them from Peaceful Valley in Oregon. I believe they're in Albany, Oregon. Some keys: your crops are going to grow fast in a container because of the heat, the sun hitting the heat zone. They're going to take more watering because what causes blossom end rot, which is every gardener's bane, is a stressed tomato plant when you've got green tomatoes on the plant. So keep them watered, keep them happy. All that watering means you have to keep them fed. So, here in Hendersonville, I'm doing, when my plants get full size, they're getting daily watering and weekly feeding. Light amounts of weekly, just balanced food. You'll need some kind of a staking application, whether it be a cage secured by a stake driven into the ground or something like that. But it's delightful because with containers, you can put your garden, the place in your yard where the sun shines for the most number of hours. So you can move your garden to the sun. Straw bales are pretty much the same, except you have to treat and prepare the bales. But I've been getting 25, 30, 40 pounds of tomatoes off each plant in straw bales, two plants to a straw bale. And it's just, and it's just another form of container gardening, except you're creating the potting mix by causing the inner decomposition of the straw bale, by starting it off with a nitrogen and then a full bore, 10-10-10 type fertilizer. But I can send links for some quick start stuff on this. Once you get into container gardening and straw bale gardening, you get hooked because you don't have the disease issues that sometimes build up with soil. You can start fresh each year. But you can reuse the potting mix as long as your plants are doing well. Don't just chuck it all. The only time I get rid of potting mix is if the plant gets something with a root-borne severe disease, like a fusarium wilt or something that you don't want the next plant you put in there to get it. Just top it up with fresh stuff and feed it. So anyway, that's a little bit about container gardening. You just have to be aware you need to water them and feed them regularly, and then just watch it go, because you can plant anything you can plant in a garden, you can plant in a container. And this year I am growing sweet corn in straw bales, and I haven't seen anybody do it anywhere. So this is a big experiment for me.
Nice. That sounds really fun.
Right on, right on. Real quick here, earlier, English Ladies Kitchen Garden jumped in and asked, do we really need to remove side shoots from our tomato plants?
The sucker
What
question.
about them suckers, man?
Suckers
Stay
are
or
for
go.
suckers. No, suckers are fine. All suckers are is a tomato plant doing what it's been told to produce as much seed as possible. So each sucker is just an additional growing stem that will flower, and it will sucker. And the suckers on it will sucker. You remove them if you're very closely planted and you're growing vertically and you just want that one central stem to produce fruit, and maybe your plants are a foot or so apart. I usually pick a number of suckers I let go, because each sucker you let go will increase the potential yield of your plant. I'm kind of a 2 or 3 sucker guy, so my plants will have 4 stems, and I'll probably put 2 stakes and tie the center and 1 sucker to one, but they don't remove energy from the plant. All they do is make your plant more complicated. If you're a cager, I wouldn't remove any suckers at all. So I grew Captain Lucky last year. an incredibly delicious variety that I was new to only a few years ago. And Sun Gold, I grow my cherry tomatoes in cages completely unsuckered, and they're tomato machines. So don't worry about the suckers. Um, it's all about managing your plant, but you
Yeah.
can remove parts of plants as the season goes on.
Mhm.
You can top them when they get to the top of your stake. Tomato plants are super resilient, and sometimes I think the more abused they are, the better they'll do. Don't baby them.
Nice.
I am a
Yeah, yeah.
don't baby your tomato plant guy.
I see this picture online all the time. It's like, here I am trying to care for and grow my tomatoes from seed, and here's this tomato growing out of the gravel just fine
Yes.
right over here. You know what I mean? So those are
We
that's kind of funny.
we
They
just
are
had
very resilient too.
yeah, we just had our first grandson this year. So my time
Wow,
gardening this year has been
that's
we're
awesome.
watching him Monday through Friday, 6:30 in the morning till 6 p.m.
Oh,
because
wow.
my daughter and her boyfriend are working
Yeah.
full time. So my seedlings this year, which have created beautiful plants, have been so abused and neglected and ignored, and they are absolutely fine. I mean, they've been outside when it's 33 degrees. They've been rained on and winded, and
Yeah.
so yeah, they can take 32 is the magic number. Do not let your plants
Mm,
freeze. Other than that, no problem at all.
Yeah,
wow.
yeah.
Cool.
Excellent, excellent. Real quick here. Sorry, Mark. Just gonna try to run through it what was okay, real quick. Side shoots. Oh, do you grow anything with your tomatoes to like deter or attract pests?
You know, I do not because I'm just in straw bales and we have lots of flowers and other stuff around, and my garden seems to be in pretty good biological balance. So we found actually cardinals come in and pluck and eat the hornworms off our tomato
Oh, cool.
plants, and
Yeah.
sometimes the bluebirds do. We get parasitic wasps anyway, so I'll go out and find hornworms if they're and this is another thing, they vary as to year, and I think there's a big weather component of this, but last year I had 2, and the year before I had about 20. So no, I haven't, and, the whole matter of companion planting is a bit of a mystery to me, and as a scientist, I would need to do controlled studies to convince myself that a lot of this stuff works. But as I tell all gardeners, if you find something that works for you, don't stop it. It's just like there's so much wonderful folklore and
Yeah,
handed
yeah.
down information that's involved in gardening. My view is the only time I will seek something different or people should seek something different is if they're banging their head against the wall with a really stubborn problem. Go
Mm,
out there then and start asking for
Mhm.
some advice on what other people have done to help you fix it.
Yeah. Excellent.
wow.
And real quick, I'm going to combine these last two
Mm,
questions too. How do you lower the cat facing issue on
uh,
heirlooms? And Serena also asks, what
yeah,
causes tomatoes to get
Yeah.
lines on the top and circles
right.
or spiral shapes? So those type of
Yeah.
deformities and things that happen on tomatoes.
Yeah. So these are both physiological effects, and cat facing is a you could call it a genetic problem, but it just happens to the very large heirloom. So rare is the German Johnson or the mortgage lifter or some of the others that won't get some cat facing on some of the fruit. It is a problem that seems to have some dependency on the temperature when the flowers pollinate, and a lot of heirlooms also have flowers that look almost more like marigolds. So they're just
Mhm.
complicated flowers anyway that have
Mm,
a very complex structure. So what I've learned with some of these ugly heirlooms is just to go with it. Sometimes that slice off the bottom, you just have to do. But if there's seeds in there, there's my seed saving piece because there's
mm,
nothing wrong with those seeds. They're all every seed in every tomato on a given plant is the same. So use your blossom end rot fruit, use your cat face fruit for seed saving. The circles on the top or the cracks on the top are from the physiological conditions of cracking due to uneven watering. It's been dry, and all of a sudden you get a gully buster thunderstorm. The tomato sucks up all that water, and the tomato
Mhm.
starts expanding faster than the skin cells can divide, and so you get a crack. what I would say in that case is, this is hard to do, I know, but try to pick your large fruited heirlooms at half ripeness. Bring
Yeah.
them in the house, let them ripen indoors. The flavor will be indistinguishable, but it's this desire for the vine ripe tomato that leads to the cracking. And
Mm,
once a tomato is vine ripe, it's much, much more perishable. And so I've been a half ripe harvester, also called when it blushes. Breaker stage is another word for it. And it's
yeah.
just amazing. It fully ripens, colors up, and if you were to put them side by side with a vine ripened, the taste would be indistinguishable, and they last a little bit longer because those cracks tend to get the fruit flies going into
Mhm.
them, and they start leaking and smelling bad and all that
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
So
And really with those where you're
yeah,
saying we're like the blushing or at that stage
yeah,
right there, anything kind of lower than that though will still ripen, but then that's
yeah.
kind of where you're losing flavor then. But
You're
if you're
losing
right
a little
around
bit of
that, it
flavor.
just seems to be at
Yeah,
that point flavor is kind of locked in.
Mm.
yeah. Halfway is about where you want to go. And however, if you've got a really late setting heirloom and the weather is getting bad and you have to pick a full size tomato green and you bring it in the house and put it in a bag with an apple or a banana, the ethylene given off by the ripe fruit will help ripen the tomato. It will probably not be as delicious, but the seeds will be completely viable once it colors
Mhm.
up. So you can save seeds and have really good success germinating them from tomatoes picked green if they're ripened indoors. And that process can take sometimes a month or more. So it's just another little trick of the trade. Now, she mentioned the circles around the
Mhm.
top. One of the ways to tell Cherokee Purple from Black Crim is Cherokee Purple gets radial cracks, starts at the stem end and runs
Mm.
down, and
Yeah.
Black Crim gets concentric cracks in a circle around the stem end. So every now and then you can just find a marker to help you tell apart different, very similar looking tomatoes just by the way they crack. And it's just, this is something that a completely insane person like me with a photographic memory learns over years and years and years and years to do. Um, but it's kind of funny. Yeah, it's the temperature swings. No, cab facing's not pleasant for processing, but if you just cut that end off, you're fine. I don't peel my tomatoes before or
Mhm.
seed them before I can them. I just cut them into chunks and do the hot water treatment, and they're fine. But a lot of people don't like seeds or skins in their canned tomatoes, so it's what different strokes for different
Right,
folks,
right. Just
right?
just a lot of preferences when it
Yeah,
comes down
yeah,
to it on that as well too. Definitely.
So, Craig, if so, this book is 10 years old. It's still read
Yeah.
so freshly, though, I have to say. And you were probably writing it a year before. So let's say this represents the book in terms of its frozen form, represents your
yeah.
thinking on tomatoes from 2014. If you were, I know you've updated us on the dwarf
Mm,
tomato project, so that's exciting.
yeah.
What else? How has your thinking evolved on tomatoes and heirlooms and such since then? What would you say? What's the latest news?
That's a great question because often I've asked my publisher, Story, who is now Hatchet, um, when will you ask me to do an update of Epic Tomatoes? And they said, well, it's still selling and people still like it and nothing in it is out of date. So
Mhm.
why go through the cost of doing that? So that makes me feel kind of good. But
Yeah.
what I would do is add stuff. And
Yeah.
so it's very light on straw bale gardening because I was just dabbling into it. In fact,
Mm.
I was just starting to write the straw bale gardening book when Epic Tomatoes was at its completion. I probably would enhance some of the disease sections more because once the book came out, I just started paying a lot more attention to it and experiencing a lot more different diseases. So
Mhm.
that is not my favorite part of the book. Number one, it's a difficult topic. Number two, I just had a lot of success. I did a lot of gardening in Pennsylvania where very few things went wrong.
Mm.
Raleigh is where things
Mhm.
started going wrong. You mentioned New Hampshire. I did my very first gardening in West Lebanon, New Hampshire,
Oh yeah. Which
when I was a
department?
grad student at Dartmouth. Yeah,
Yeah.
um, I would research and do a chapter probably on more on greenhouse growing and on
Okay.
hydroponics growing and things
Yeah.
like that. I would cover micro dwarf varieties, which are becoming really, really popular now. So it's not that anything in there I would take back or correct, except for if you're container gardening every year with tomatoes, toss the
Mhm.
planting material away and start new. I've just learned that, everybody gets septoria leaf spot and early blight. It's not the end of the world. If that's the worst that happens in your container grown tomatoes, keep the dirt, plant in them again, because that stuff blows in during the season from
Yeah.
elsewhere. It's not sitting in your soil. But I would love to have another crack at it. The Dwarf Tomato Project has twice as many releases, and maybe someday.
Right.
The Dwarf Tomato Project book is up here.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
really perturbed at myself for not having written it, but because I'm going to self-publish it and it's not associated with a contract, my discipline these days with, grandparenting and all that, it's hard to sit in front of a laptop for hours a day. But I've got it. There's somebody, a tomato friend in Finland who's an editor is going to work with me on it and help push me. So that book should be out next year, I think.
That's great news. That's wonderful. Wow. No, and I garden at a rooftop. I do a rooftop garden in Portland, Oregon for a Noble Raw restaurant. And I'm going to be working more dwarf tomatoes in this
Yeah.
year. That just seems perfect for our setting.
Yeah.
It's not I tried very much yet.
What's really good is if you think of them as an indeterminate variety that's half the height, it fruits. So it's not like Roma that gives you 20 pounds of tomatoes within 2 weeks and then you pull the plant.
Right.
It will put tomatoes out until the end of the growing season. So like I tell people, if your Cherokee Purple in your growing conditions is 6 feet tall by August, your dwarf will be 3 feet tall. It just has a vertical expansion at half the rate. And please do email me, and I can look through all those 168. You can tell me what you're looking for in terms of color, flavor, size, shape, texture, and relative ease of growth, relative trouble freeness, and I can give you kind of a starter list of those you may want to focus on to help you get the best possible initial look into those. Use me as a consultant.
Okay.
That's right. That's right. I'm going to for sure.
Yeah. When one of the world tomato experts gives that kind of an offer, we're gonna email you.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
To me, this is all just free information I freely share because that's how gardening information gets passed down. We all learn stuff and we all share it. You'll share it forward. So anytime. It's kind of what I do these days is just help people garden.
That's awesome.
Yeah, let's see here. Real quick, Jersey Girl was asking, are all dwarf tomatoes determinate?
No, they're dwarf. And this has been one of the biggest challenges is people group tomatoes into indeterminate, determinate, and the dwarf is actually a third major genetic type. The reason it's not so known is because there were so very, very, very few of them. But think of a determinate tomato has typical foliage. The plant kind of flops over. It doesn't have the thick stem, and it produces all of its fruit at the end of branches when they flower. Whereas a dwarf just has a very thick central stem and just grows slowly, but is indeterminate in nature in that it continues to flower and fruit until it's killed by frost or disease. So I really been working hard over the last maybe 8 years to get people to think of dwarfs as dwarfs. And what you need to do is just grow a few.
A different category, right?
Yeah, just
you know
different
what I
genetic
mean?
category.
Determinate, indeterminate, dwarf. They don't. They're three different things.
Right, and they've each got their own genes that code for those growth habits. And now microdwarfs come in to
That's
make
what I
it
was
even
just
more.
going to ask. Microdwarf. Yes, exactly. Because I grew orange hat last year. I got this other red variety that BC put out this last year. So I'm trying that one.
Yeah. If you go to Bunny Hop Seeds, they list about 50 or 60 microdwarfs now.
Wow.
And they're working, and they've got amateur breeders that have put together kind of their own dwarf breeding project, only they've worked on micros, and so they're trying to work in stripes and colors. The problem is fruit size seems to, when you do breeding, you find that small fruit size is highly dominant. So one of my examples, I crossed Summertime Green, which is a 1 pound dwarf, with Mexico Midget, which is a pea-sized indeterminate. And the hybrid looks like sun gold in shape. And so that small fruit size is extremely domineering. everything I've worked with in that cross is kind of a cherry or a large cherry, nothing even approaching the 1 pound. When I think of micro dwarfs, I used to say, what happens if you cross Red Robin with Mortgage Lifter? I mean, it sounds cruel. Can you possibly have a 6-inch tall plant with a 2-foot tomato sitting on it?
Right, exactly.
But the cherry size of Red Robin seems to be so domineering that the biggest micros I think people have found are maybe in the 3 or 4 ounce range. And the other issue so far people I think continue to work with is there's so many fruit and there's so little foliage. So getting really intense flavors is a challenge because you don't have that level of photosynthesis. That's why
Mm,
Roma doesn't taste all that great. You've got almost as many tomatoes as you have leaves, whereas in a Cherokee Purple,
great
maybe you've
point.
got a dozen or 15 fruit, but you've got all of this foliage to
Yeah.
crank out the sugars and flavors into the tomatoes. So I'm trying to touch on these little hints to send you in.
Exactly.
Where, yeah.
You're doing it great. That's awesome because that was a good piece
Yeah.
right there for sure.
Wow.
Yeah, and again, I think those dwarfs, and then again, like extending down the micro dwarfs, have been having fun with the last couple of years too. You talk about small space gardening, which is really what I kind of,
Yeah.
talk a lot about in my
Yeah.
channel and everything. Is that it's really fun, because actually, again, too, touching on what you're talking about, container size, 5 gallons being kind of like a really kind of a base good size.
Yeah.
I really like to grow things around the container garden in anything
Yes.
much smaller. Right.
Yeah.
But micro dwarfs these just are perfect. I mean, you got all these
Yeah.
little 1 gallon pots all over the place that collect
Yeah.
up all over the place. I got 50 of them. I can grow 50 micro dwarfs and just
Yes.
spread them all over the place
Yeah.
and on
Yep.
the porch and all that sort of
Yeah.
stuff. So they are really fun in that aspect for
They
sure.
are. I do the same thing with the small ornamental peppers that have like the really dark purple foliage and the
Yeah.
multicolored fruit. I kind of
Mhm.
play around with that as a breeding project too. So I've got like 15 little 1 gallon pots with these little peppers that are going to be happy as clams growing in them. And they'll give you fruit and they'll give you the heat level and, saving seeds from. So I get what you talked about, Enoch, is so great because it's playing in the garden. It's
Yeah.
using all of the space you have flexibly to the best of your ability to learn the most and get the most production and food, right?
And food, exactly. Good, delicious tomatoes for sure. Absolutely.
Mm.
Yeah, I love some of your recipes, and I absolutely love the idea of a color
Yeah.
coded salsa that
Ah,
heat.
Ye-
That was like so genius. It's like, of course,
Mm.
screaming red would be the hottest. Green is the mildest. Is like
yeah.
that's so brilliant. Color
We,
coded.
we we took that to a party once and people got a real kick out of it because they thought the green salsa was tomatillo. And when they
Yeah.
took a
Mm.
scoop of it, they're like, my God, it tastes like the best, sweetest tomato. I think I used Aunt Ruby's Green and Green Giant in it, which are like 2 of the most killer flavored tomatoes I've ever grown.
Oh
And
yeah.
yeah, and white tomato sauce. So you can
Mm.
really play around with just interesting things to cook. And all chemists love to cook. So I
Yeah.
I do most of the cooking in the family. And
There you
you know,
go.
right now we've got kale and chard and a lot of lettuce. So we're very seasonal eaters. We won't eat a
Mhm.
tomato until our first picked one, and we won't eat a tomato after our last picked one. We just say
Yeah.
that's it. We'll do canned. We'll do our oven roasted frozen, but not,
Yeah,
no
yeah, yeah.
no yucky tomato on my burger at a restaurant or whatever.
Yeah. You
Right,
got
right. There.
culinary lines clearly drawn. I like that.
Right on,
Well, right
right
now
on.
it's strawberry time and asparagus time, and we are just
Yeah.
gouging on them both. And it's just,
Mm.
I'll miss them so much when they're gone. But
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. All right, Mark, you got one last question for our friend Craig here?
Well, I think we just go back to what you said earlier on. It's just like what you're trying to do is really save quality and preserve quality, and to almost like I'm an educator, a garden
yeah,
educator. I love that education of like we're educating all our fellow citizens on what
yes,
to eat. If you have any final reflections on that, I'd like to hear it.
yeah. There's no comparison between what you can buy at a farmer's market and what you can grow. And sometimes even that, like if you grow your own bush beans, And sometimes what shows up at a farmer's market has been sitting there for a few days, and you can tell
Mm.
by squeezing the bean. And if it feels a little bit hollow between the beans inside, you're going to be able to floss with them, and that's not good. You know, you don't want to floss while you're eating your beans.
No, you don't.
So I think it spoils you when you can grow interesting things. My grandfather and my father both got me into gardening, so that sent me on
Mhm.
going to the government site that has 80,000 seed catalogs photographed and downloaded so you can look at them. What my grandfather may have grown. That sends you to the USDA to find seeds. So there's a lot of things I want to cover here. It allows you to reach back into your past and reconnect with your relatives to find what may
Mm.
have been in their
Mhm.
gardens so that part of your garden can emulate it. And that's a teaching tool with your children and grandchildren. But that this type of gardening also helps build community. So
Yes.
when I do my Instagram lives, I get like 20 or 30 people that are there because people work, but by the end of the week, 1,000 people have watched it. And I've been doing
Yep.
these for 6 years now. And this is a community of tomato nuts that will
Mhm.
endure my demonstrations on crossing tomatoes and
Yes.
my discussions of recessive. But there's something deeper there, and it's gardeners are nice, and we live in a world that niceness is almost looked at as a negative.
Mm.
Empathy is
Right.
almost looked on as a negative, but
Yeah.
I think that's the answer to us going forward is,
Mhm.
and
Absolutely.
then there's the community of giving all of your extra plants to different community gardens. And when I lived in Raleigh, it was taking them to the library in inner city Durham, where there were a lot of economically challenged people there, and they would all come out, and 1,000 plants would go in an hour, and then I'd get emails with family pictures. These are what my tomatoes look like that I got for your plant. Thank you so much. So gardeners, I'll end with this. Gardeners are going to have to save the world because we have certain insights into connecting with people, into eating, into quality eating, into health that I
Mhm.
think is really, really special. And we just help each other understand how special this really is so that they can then pass it forward to other people and they'll be gardeners and it all works out.
Yes,
Uh,
it does.
that this being Sunday morning, no truer sermon has been preached.
That is
Yeah,
right.
yeah, my wife once said, well, I have to tell this story. I tell a lot of stories. I was
It's
getting my
great.
hair cut one day. My friend Angie cut my hair, and she was really super religious, really nice. And we get into these discussions. And then at one point I said, well, I got to go back to my job at the chemistry company. She goes, Craig, I thought you were a minister. The way that we have these discussions here, I thought you were a pastor at a church. And I thought, well, I'm going to take that as a compliment, Angie. If somebody is going to mistake, a lab rat chemist that goes home reeking of bad chemicals to somebody who's saving souls, I'll take that any day.
Yeah, exactly. Really, really wonderful, Craig. Thank you. I mean, this has just been an amazing discussion here for our show today.
Your
Just
pleasure.
absolutely wonderful. Usually like to end by grabbing a little reading out of the book, but thanks to our good friend MBC here for rescuing me here today and helping us snatch a good little piece of your book here. And so I'll read this, and then maybe you can give us a little last minute thoughts here
Mm,
on your book and what you got going on. I will drop this question in here too, real quick, and because this, you can also let us know where we can follow you and all of that sort of stuff. Myra Lemons was asking if you had a YouTube channel, but yeah, you can let us know about all of that
yeah.
sort of stuff. But I want to just end with this part of your book here, where you say that my hope is that in reading this book, you will be inspired to embark on a gardening journey that will renew you each season and last a lifetime. You'll come away from each garden anxious to begin the following season with many successes and a few inevitable misfortunes on which to build and learn. Each year, my own gardening efforts teach me something new, reinforce the validity of tried and true practices, and bust a few urban gardening myths. I want to share what I've learned so that everyone who has the desire to grow and taste a tomato that is delicious or colorful or interesting can do so. Pick up a shovel, grab a pot, put on the garden gloves, and let's grow some great tomatoes.
Mm.
Awesome, Craig. Thank you so much.
I don't remember saying that, but I'm sure I did. I,
It is 10 years ago.
my wife's an introvert and I'm an extrovert, and I'm not, she's been to so many of my talks and she sits and knits, but she could actually probably give some of my talks. She's heard them so many times. Yeah, I do have a website, CraigLeHoullier.com. I really need to update my blog because a lot's going on out there. So I like to take people along my season. But there's a frequently asked question that's pretty useful. But what I've found is if you do an FAQ, people really want to talk to you anyway. So I answer all my emails, nctomatoman@gmail.com. I'm on Instagram weekly. Right now it's Friday afternoons at 4:00 at nctomatoman. And, reach out. If you got a question, ask it. If you got a comment, share it. But I do what I do pretty much for all of you, for me as well, because I love what I grow and what I eat. But it really, I do feel the burden of spreading this stuff and getting people. When we sold seedlings, I always said my goal is to put myself out of business. So everybody I sold seedlings to would be starting their own. Kind of the same here. Everybody should, not that I ever not want to do a podcast again or come back and talk to you wonderful guys, but but it will be something different. We'll all discover something new, and who knows where we take this in, the next 5 or 10 years.
Yeah, exactly. And we got links down below. Jay's putting links into the conversation and all of that. And like I always like to say is definitely go over to one of those links there. And you're invited. In fact, you've been invited to go over, ask some questions, get some tomato knowledge from this amazing author, we'll say, and gardener of this wonderful, amazing book, Epic Tomatoes. Again, I'll just mention too, this book is just so full of not just, the history you have with tomatoes and all that sort of stuff, but man, there are really good lists already of great tomato varieties that you can look at that are in here. You've got recipes, you've got all sorts of just other types of really good information as well. So this is just a very well put together book, and no wonder it's still selling like crazy and all of that as well too. So again, thank you for this amazing book, Craig, and everybody else. Check out links down below so you can get yourself a copy if you haven't got one already.
Good. I'm glad to have just 2 new friends, and I really enjoy. This is one of the favorite things that I've done since the book came out. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Craig. What a great conversation. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, too, like I said, we did, we talked a lot about tomatoes. We talked a lot about this book and everything. But again, we can tell your passion and everything is so much just on par with what we've got growing on here on Let's Get Growing all the time. So we'll definitely have to look forward to having you back just to talk some general gardening sometime, maybe. And
I love it.
That'll just be really, really wonderful. But again, thank you for taking your time today, though, to share all of this just great stuff out of this just wonderful book with us today. And again, look forward to seeing you again real soon.
My pleasure.
Craig.
Bye-bye.
Hey, gardeners, thanks for tuning in to our show today. We'll be right back at it here in just a moment. I just wanted to take a second here to highlight our regular video. Let's Get Growing is sponsored by IV Organic.
Hi, my name is Charles Malky, biologist and plant expert with IV Organics, where we grow cool plants and author Saving the World with the Home Garden. IV Organic 3-in-1 Plant Guard has 7 natural oils that protect your plants, not just from the summer heat as well as winter cold, but also protects your plants from damaging insects and rodents. The oils in the product include castor, cinnamon, clove, garlic, peppermint, rosemary, and spearmint. These oils are natural insect and rodent repellent oils, which are encapsulated by the base powder, offering your plants months of protection at a time. 1 application per year will suffice for protection against damaging summer sunburn and winter sun scald, but if the target is pests, application as much as 2 to 3 times a year may be necessary.
All right.
Jaw-
Woo!
Jaws dropped.
I know. Just
Oh
again,
man.
too, I love it. It's just another great a selection and addition to this just amazing book club that we've been on this last year or so now, and it's just like I said, it just keeps getting better and better, doesn't it?
I got my little notebook that I use when I read the different books. And then when the author's speaking, I took proportionally more notes today than I have for any other author during the conversation. I'm like, oh man, I got to get this stuff down. This is everything that's spilling out is just seems so valuable. But I'm super glad to have the book to refer back to, super glad to have the website. And, Craig just seems so sincere and is like, here's my email. I answer all my emails. Just drop me an email and I'll see what I can do.
Yeah.
So,
and again, too, I love that again, the inner passion again that we all share in a sense that he really has on that level that you're talking about. Like that's really kind of the purpose of a lot of this stuff. My spending time here, or you as well, that we do is to be able to share with everybody and kind of just give this stuff and this information so that more and more people can be encouraged and enlightened, to be able to grow a great garden for themselves as well too. That's all we're really trying to do is just promote this just amazing passion and pastime and so what another like I said, just another great gardener with another great book just helping to promote that out there.
Yeah, it's encouraging. I take this hike at Easter time to get water from a spring that's up in the Columbia River Gorge. And one of my friends once said, this thing's flowing 24/7. When we're not here, when we're not thinking about it, it's flowing 24/7. But today, I take comfort in knowing that Craig LeHoullier is out there saving the world almost 24/7. He's, all his years of tomato experience, it's like I am growing Cherokee Purple this year. It's like thanks to Craig LeHoullier. So just knowing that all the stuff he's done, it has made the world a better place, right? We're benefiting from our love of tomatoes and other crops, and being able to receive a wisdom like this and have a guest like this today is just totally awesome.
Yeah, and I did really love those kind of parting thoughts, though, too, on the idea of saving the world, gardeners saving the world, because, I really believe that sort of thing as well, too. I mean, we know and understand community better, I think, than most groups of people out there. And there's just, there's just so many of us, throughout the world, and if we can just reach out with each other and work with each other to be able to, again, to help encourage and enlighten and educate and show people just how awesome this, again, too, whether you call it a passion or a pastime is, there's so much more you get from gardening than what you would initially expect when you get involved. And also another point he made too earlier on as well was that gardening also continues to give and give and give. As he says, at his age, it's great to be able to know and be able to take that sort of information from someone like him to be able to teach us and encourage us that gardening is something that that we can spend a lifetime with and never really find that full encompassment of the joy that we have, right? Because there's just more and more of it. The cup just gets bigger and bigger. It doesn't overflow.
It's such a big tent. You hear that expression sometimes. Gardening's such a big tent, and it's really still one of the places where we can meet each other despite all our divisions and all this stuff. We can come together and share some of these passions and
common ground. It's common ground.
Common ground, man. So we gotta keep doing this just for that very reason. We need these points of common ground to stand on where we can just enjoy each other's company and be passionate about something together. And that's going to help bring us together in a whole bunch of other ways.
Yes, absolutely. So again, one last time here as we're closing out the May selection of our gardening book club, Epic Tomatoes. We got a link down below for you. Get yourself a copy of this great book. Go check out Craig too, again, on his Instagram and other places as well too. Like you said, you're invited to go and ask questions and learn more about tomatoes. And hopefully again too, we'll have him back on the show and get to dig into some more garden talk with him and just really kind of just like I said, continue the conversation just a little bit more on kind of what we were just talking about there. But for us now, Mark, it's actually time to move on, right? I mean, come on, from one book goes another book. So time for our June selection of the monthly gardening book club. And for this next month, we've got this really great book. Mark's already been, as he said, he's just kind of teased you real quick there, just a real quick tease. He's already got his copy. He's been digging into this one for a while, for a little bit here. But this next month, our June selection of the monthly gardening book club will be Mr. Christian Douglas, author of the book, The Food Forward Garden. So we're going to have Christian Douglas talking about his book, The Food Forward Garden, a complete guide to designing and growing edible landscapes. So real quick, Mark, kind of like a little bit of a preview here. Like I said, you've already got your book. We're in for a good read here, huh?
Well, yeah. So this is, I'm going to hold up this other book that actually looks very similar to it. Deborah.
They do look, I was going to say.
World, and this one, The Food Forward Garden by Christian Douglas. So both of these books literally leapt off the shelf at my local nursery. I was walking like 10 feet away. I remember when I saw this one, Botanic Gardens of the World, I was like a tractor being pulled me over to see this book. And I was like, okay, I got to get this. Same thing for this one. It speaks to my interest as a designer. It's so beautiful. It's about how to make our food gardens productive and yet gorgeous. So we're going to really dig into some design principles here, and I can't wait to learn from this master, Christian Douglas, because once you start seeing the gardens he's designed, you'll be like, I need my garden to look more like that. How do I do it? And it's not, it's a new, we haven't really worked with design so much in terms of the aesthetic part of design. And Scott gave us some really solid info about how to design raised beds, that sort of thing, a little more on the building side, but this is more on the aesthetics and how to create a really beautiful landscape that's also highly productive.
Yeah, as well too. Exactly. And also for everybody too, if you're here with us live right now, Jay has dropped a link into the live chat right now, so you can get yourself a copy of this really great book by Christian Douglas. For all of you on the replay, we should by now have a link down in the description for you as well too, so that you can get a copy of this book. Get yourself a copy, check it out, and read along with us this month, and then come and join with us on June 15th, which just happens to be Father's Day for us, Mark. So that'll be fun to kind of celebrate with a great book and a great chat for Father's Day, talking about some garden design with this really wonderful book.
Oh yeah, but when Father's Day comes around, my wife's like, what do you want to do for Father's Day? And it's usually like, go out in the garden and just have some time to focus on the garden. So this is perfect. This is like right in line with what I'd be doing. Let me just show you like one example of.
Ooh, yeah, great picture. Look at that.
I mean, this is another one of those sexy books. You're going to be drooling for reasons and tomatoes, but man, this is like, I want my gardens to look more like this. How can I do it?
Yeah, exactly. And in some cases, in some parts of my garden, and we kind of touched on this just a little bit too, I like a little bit of erratic or being a little chaotic or just letting things be to a certain level. But I'm also one of these people who likes kind of straight lines and certain things. So it's just something, again, too, that works just the way my mind works in a way too. So in some ways, some of us are just that way, you know what I mean? And as much as I try to, and again, I appreciate also a lot of folks who do garden in some of those fashions. I do like the sense of, things working in a way. That picture like really just entices me when I look at that type of thing, because my mind goes, oh wow, that's just just looks really great. We had Julia Dimakos on the show yesterday too, and she's got a garden very similar that's got the cool shapes and designed really well like that with all the raised beds and everything. So just really wonderful book to be able to really get some great ideas and to just dig into the idea of how and what we can do in thinking about design in our food garden though too. This is talking about growing food though, not just, and again, well, we appreciate all gardening around here, but we really do emphasize food growing, and design is really a lot correlated a lot with more of other types of gardening, whether it's landscape gardening, flower gardening, these sort of things, as we're just trying to beautify places and stuff. And so sometimes I can really escape the food garden a little bit, right?
Right. So here's a chance to perfectly marry them both, and you can have this gorgeous garden in your backyard or something that you would be proud to entertain any of your guests in, and literally like reach over and be grabbing stuff for the table. So that's just integrating those things seems like a real big achievement, and I think we're going to be learning from another master here.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, too, whew, here we are, another one in the books, man. What are we at? This is 13, I think, right?
I think so, man.
So
really,
we're moving right along here. 13 great books, 13 great authors live right here on the show with us. So, you can't beat a book club like this, everybody. So thank you all so much for all of you who have been here today throughout the show and the conversation. And again, really, you guys really brought it today. Way to go. Huge thumbs up with those great, awesome questions, man. That was just really, really great. Again, this book club is just moving along awesome. You guys, the viewers, just really help make this just such a great, fun experience for us here, getting to be into the conversation too. So again, everybody, thank you all so much for being here and taking part in this conversation with us.
Spread the word, tell your friends, bring them along next time. I think it's fun. Obviously, a lot of similar to what Craig was saying, I think there's a lot of replay views over time, but it's also fun to have everyone present right at the moment with the author, because it's a very special moment. It's an interactive moment and a dynamic thing. So keep spreading the word. We want more and more people joining us here in this great community of gardeners.
That's right. Absolutely. More and more gardeners. And again, too, that is our mission here on the Let's Get Growing show, is to grow community through gardening. Let's grow. Just like I say, it's right at the top of the screen throughout the whole show. That is what we're here to do, is to encourage people and to grow gardeners out there. We're growing gardeners through our show. So that's what we're here doing each and every weekend. And again, Mark, absolutely wonderful. Couldn't imagine spending my Sunday on the third Sunday of the month with anybody better than my good friend Mark Boucher-Gobert, hanging out with these wonderful authors and wonderful books, man. So thanks again to you for spending your time with us each and every month to take part in this awesome discussion.
And Enoch, you're an amazing guy. And, the love's coming right back at you. When you said about your 1 million views, you were like, well, I'm just little gardener doing something. It's like, no, you are so connected. You've been nurturing this thing. You've been making these incredible opportunities happen for people. So it's a privilege to be working with you, because you have this amazing vision of what you want to do with this program. And you've been telling me about it for years, and it is happening. It's coming together as you've go.
Yeah. I mean, if anybody knows, it's definitely you. As I've talked, I originated this whole idea in thoughts, and whether or not I could bring it out in conversations with you very early on years ago. And it is something to see us here today actually doing that, and where it is with everybody today. And again, like I said too, that is really hugely in part to all of you who are here with us and spend your time with us each and every weekend, for again too not a pat. And everybody knows I don't like. I really don't like doing that too much and everything. But I really do have to recognize the fact that again, I do try to keep myself connected throughout the whole gardening community and what's going on in all the different corners of it and all of that sort of stuff. And there are lots of really great gardening shows and that sort of stuff out there. But for the kind of content and the kind of guests and the kind of things that we've been able to do here with the Let's Get Growing show, you literally just can't find this sort of thing out there, and I think it's really unique. And I myself, again, too, am just really kind of, in a sense, proud and honored to be able to bring this sort of thing to everybody. And thank you all, everybody, for the 1 million views. Thank you all for helping bring all of this whole thing to where it is today. It really is wonderful. And again, I go on and on about all that sort of stuff, Mark. Again, another wonderful Sunday edition of Monthly Book Club here with you. And I look forward to more and more. And again, too, we'll see you again on second Sundays for In the Garden, and then live again with us again for our next monthly book club with Christian Douglas and the Food Forward Garden. So again, thank you, Mark, for being here with us today. And I'll see you here in just a few minutes.
And what I want to just offer before I go is let's not lose sight of that Italian villa with all our
right
for a symposium. I think that.
I'll tell you what, we ever get there, we get that big, we'll put that on definitely on the top of the list. We'll make that happen. Yes, awesome. We'll see you there.
And big thanks to Craig if he's still around. That was just an amazing talk. I mean, really, like you can't get that kind of stuff anywhere else. And hopefully everyone who's joined us today realizes just exactly what we got today. It was an amazing teaching. Thank you.
Yeah, excellent. Awesome. We'll see you in a few minutes. Let's close this thing out.
Let's do it.
All right, everybody. Again, just a really wonderful third Sunday of the month, monthly gardening book club. Craig LeHoullier talking all about tomatoes today. Wonderful conversation. Thank you, everybody, for again, for all of the wonderful, awesome questions and participating in our conversation today. Because again, that's what this live stream's all about, is to bring a conversation for all of you out there to enjoy and to learn and to be inspired, hopefully, by all of these wonderful, great guests that we're so fortunate to have with us here each and every weekend. So real quick here, let's do a real quick rundown. I'll try to run through this really quick. Yesterday on the show, if you didn't get a chance to check out yesterday's show, we had Jules Acton, another wonderful author of the book Folklore. Just a great book. Great conversation with her on yesterday's show. Plus, we had Julia Dimecos, the gardening girl, back on the show with us again. So definitely go back and check out yesterday's show if you didn't get a chance to. Also, last Sunday, talking about all of you guys and how wonderful you are and helping us get to where we are. Yes, last Sunday, we had our community show. This was just really amazing. We've been really doing and having some fun with this community show over this season now, and we had a really great one this last Sunday. And again, the community show is all about you guys, you the viewers, and you guys are the guests. So again, I'm working on getting another one of those going. We'll announce that all to you as we get another one planned for an upcoming Sunday edition for all of you there as well too. Next Saturday on the show, we've got Joseph Lofthouse joining with us. I've gotten to know Joseph over the years at the Baker Creek Heirloom Seed Company's Heirloom Exposition. Joseph is a real specialist in landrace gardening. We're going to talk about saving seed and landrace gardening with Joseph Lofthouse. And we also have the Suburban Gardenista joining us for our Are You Following Me segment for this next Saturday. So we got some really great conversations ahead for you coming up this next Saturday on the show, as well as next Sunday's Sunday edition of the Let's Get Growing show. We have another garden roundtable discussion with our friends New Garden Road and Michael Overstreet from the Garden Nerd. Are going to join with us for a fun little roundtable garden discussion on next Sunday edition of the show. So we got lots and lots growing on here on the Let's Get Growing show coming up, so you don't want to miss out. So definitely Subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. Hit the bell notification so you'll be sure to know when all of our upcoming shows, all them upcoming shows are coming out, as well as all of our videos and everything. And if you can, click that like button, hit the thumbs up before you head out today, as well as share with all of your garden friends and let them know that we are here again every Saturday and Sunday, 11 a.m. Pacific time, 2 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. British summertime BST, and yeah. That's also sorry, you guys are as well too. I love having all of you here with us too. So again, thank you so much for being here. Follow all of the links down in the description below, and I'll see all of you guys on our very next show this next Saturday with our great guests. Again, thank you so much, everybody. You all have a great weekend, and we'll see you next weekend.